In this video, I will provide you with the basic information you're going to need to add a landing at the bottom of a stairway. Now, the first thing you're going to need to do will be to remove the first riser in some cases, or the first tread. Now, you won't need to remove these all the time. However, in our example, we are going to remove them and measure the height of the stringer that sits on top of the treated lumber. And if yours is not sitting on top of treated lumber, you can simply grab a piece of treated lumber, butt it up against the stairway, and then measure the distance. And in this example here, we have 5 1/4 inches. And that will be the height of our floor joist. So we're going to need to cut a 2x6 that is usually 5 1/2 inches tall down to 5 1/4 inches, as long as we're going to be using a full 1.5 inch piece of lumber for our sill plates. Next thing, let's go ahead and draw the perimeter of the landing. And of course, your design can be different. Then we're going to cut our base framing plates, or the plates that our 5 1/4 inch tall lumber will be sitting on. Now, you can fasten these to concrete with some type of a wedge anchor, framing anchor like this one, that will require you to drill a hole in the concrete. Or you can also use some type of epoxy and all threads. And in some cases, you might be able to get away with using a shot and a pin. This is a type of nail that can be driven into the concrete with a tool that can usually be purchased fairly inexpensive or rented from your local rental yard. And if you are going to be attaching this to a wood framed floor, you can usually use nails or screws and even put some type of an adhesive underneath the framing plate. And it wouldn't be a bad idea to position all of the pins or the framing anchors in a location where they will not interfere with your rim joist or your floor joist. And to give you a better idea of what I'm talking about, let's go ahead and install the rim joist on each side. And if for whatever reason you need to notch any of the framing components for the floor joist or the rim joist here, that's usually not going to be that big of a deal. But you can see here where all of the pins are located in an area where they are not going to be underneath any of the other joist or the rim joist. So if you can avoid that, make sure that you do. And you can fasten the joist to the framing plates with a toenail or an angled nail, usually a 16D. And I will leave it up to you whether you use a common or a sinker nail. And let's not forget that you might need to check with your local building department to verify whether or not you can actually make this modification to your property, as I try to mention in most of my videos. And of course, you can end nail the joist through the ledger with 16D nails also. I usually like to install 3 for 2x6 or 2x8, and then 4 for a 2x10 or a 2x12 joist. And if for whatever reason you're using a 2x4, 2 nails should work for that. And of course, the rim joist can be toe-nailed, about 16-inch on center spacing for the nails to attach it to the framing plates. And after you have secured all of the framing, you can go ahead and install the floor sheathing. And in our case here, we are using the same thickness, 3/4 of an inch thick sheathing, the same thickness as our treads. If you are going to use materials with different thicknesses, make sure that you adjust accordingly. For example, if I was going to use 1 1/8 material, I would need to lower this another 3/8 of an inch to prevent riser variations in the stairway or different height steps. And another thing you might consider doing will be to put an overhang in the area that will be used to step down off of the platform onto the floor. And that would look something like this. The same overhang that we have here will be the one that we are using on the stairway. 1 inch overhang for the stair steps, 1 inch for the landing. And you don't need to put this on the landing if you don't want to. However, the step down will usually look better if it matches the stairs. And obviously you will not need it in any area that will be up against a wall or a section of the landing that you will not be using to step down off of the landing. So if you're going to be able to step down off the landing in this direction and in this direction here, then you might consider using a 1-inch overhang all the way around the deck. Another thing you might consider doing will be to bring the landing out to where it lines up with either the first step or the front of a riser, if this will work better for your design instead of coming back a little bit and then over. And of course, consider making the landing a little shorter. If this landing was about 1 inch shorter, we wouldn't have this small piece here. However, that won't work out all the time, and you might need to make adjustments to the sheathing or to the joist. And of course, we can change the direction of the floor sheathing if that's going to work better for us along with the floor joist. And you can always add 1 or more of the base framing plates if you want to make the floor a little stronger. And I've actually done something like this when using 2x4 joist, if that might work better for your project. And for those of you who have noticed, we have cut the ends of the stringer off so that we could butt the joist up against the stringer. And again, another idea that you can use if that's going to work better. And as always, if you have any questions at all about this type of framing, feel free to leave those questions in the comment area, and I will answer them as soon as possible. And of course, you can see here where the height is exactly the same for our newly remodeled platform. And something like this will definitely make the building inspector happy.